Okay, welcome everyone. It's Tim Gillard here at CBC, along with a team of helpers ready to welcome you to college admissions, what to know now for the class of 25, and also hopefully maybe some sophomores and freshmen that might be joining us. But we really appreciate you all being here very much. And I will start with the PowerPoint here, and we're going to get right into it because it is at 6:30, and we know we have a lot to cover tonight, so we are going to do just that. And here we are. Okay, there I am. All right, still learning a little bit of the functionality. So thanks again to everyone for being here. As we start all things at CBC, we're going to start with a prayer, and then we'll let you know who's here. All right. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, we come before you with humble hearts, seeking your guidance and wisdom during this important time for our students and families. We ask for your grace and blessings upon all high school students, and especially ours tonight, those who are preparing to apply to college in the coming years. Grant them clarity of mind and strength of spirit as they navigate this journey. Help them to present their true selves with honesty and confidence, trusting in your plan for their future. May they find peace in knowing that you are with them every step of the way. Guide the admissions officers to see the potential and gifts each student brings. We pray for patience and perseverance for the students and their families, and for your will to be done in their lives. St. John Baptist de La Salle, pray for us. Live Jesus in our hearts forever. Okay, I'm going to open the PowerPoint here and take a look at the agenda. Right. Thanks for bearing with me here. There we go. Okay, so welcome to everyone. We're so glad you're here. Tonight's participants are our CBC families, the CBC counseling team, represented on screen by me, but this is certainly a team effort from the 6 counselors tonight. And those teammates are Rene Vega, Katie Corbin, Cary Lewis, Scott Gillespie, and Rashad Young. And we're joined tonight by some of our partners in the college admissions process, some of the most popular schools that our boys are always interested in. We have joining us tonight Isabel Carleton from Wash U in St. Louis. On the PowerPoint, this will all be recorded, so you can look back if you need the emails of any of these helpful folks. They will be on the PowerPoint and on the video. We're also joined by Mark Nothum from St. Louis University. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Isabel. And then Hunter Oaks from Mizzou. Thank you so much to all of you for being here. Okay, so we really have about, let's see, it's 6:35. We have a lot to cover in the coming, 20 minutes or 20 minutes for the first part, I guess, but we have 90 minutes to cover everything we need to cover. And we're going to start with an overview. So you can see the agenda here. We're going to talk junior, senior timeline, the roles involved, your counselor, your admissions reps, and you. When I say you, I primarily mean the students. How it's the time to research. We're going to talk a little bit about college visits and the Common application, and how do colleges evaluate applicants. What about letters of recommendation? How do those work? Admissions glossary. We're going to talk about different types of admissions deadlines. And we will talk about the ACT and SAT, test optional policies, FAFSA, CSS profile, and then what's next. So obviously, we have a lot to get to. First, the junior and senior year timeline will be posted on the Blackbaud resources page for all of our families. You can get on there and find the junior timeline and the senior timeline. The point with the junior and senior timeline is really just to kind of break down the coming months and years of your life into more manageable steps. Sorry, I'm going back to my Teams here and getting myself on the screen again. Okay, so what we want you to hear right off the bat, seniors especially, is this can obviously be a, kind of a nerve-wracking time of life. So you're juniors now, okay? You got a whole year ahead of you. Just to put a timeline in context a little bit, we just finished up with the senior application process, okay? The main early part of it. So November 1st of your senior year is when you're going to be submitting a bunch of your first applications, okay? So basically a year from now. And what we want to review tonight and talk about, and you'll see on the timeline, is how to get you from here to there to your fall of your senior year as smoothly as possible, and try to have it be, broken down into smaller steps and have you well aware of what's going on as it's happening and taking charge in the process, okay? Regardless of your plans for post-CBC, we have about 90% of our students go to four-year schools, and about 5 or 6% go to two-year schools, and then the rest do other things, hockey juniors, go work for the family business, other things, okay? Wherever you are on your journey to post-CBC life, we just want you to know we're here to support you and help you figure it out. So the focus of tonight is obviously preparing for college admissions. But no matter where you are on it, we want you to hear we're here for you, and that we're eager to work with you throughout the process, whatever it looks like for you. Okay. But again, the heaviest part of the application season for the seniors has kind of wound down a little bit. The seniors will keep us busy all year long. We'll have students applying to college in January, February, and March. But we'll have them applying all year long, but really the densest part of the application season has been August, September, and October, culminating on November 1st. And we'll talk a little bit about deadlines as we go on. Okay, so the role of your CBC counselor and the role of you, students, and the role of your admissions reps. After I talk about these first two, I'm going to throw it to some of our admissions reps to talk about their roles in your lives in the coming years and introduce themselves. So the role of the CBC counselor is kind of what I already mentioned. No matter what shape this takes for you, we're here to support you. We want to help you every single step of the way and answer any questions you have, because each of you is a unique individual with different needs and wants and different hopes and dreams. And so we're here for you to support you. However, the number one driver of the bus is you, the student, okay? You have this evening tonight, for example. There's probably a bunch of students that are going to watch this tonight, others that will watch it in the on video form. That's kind of a step in taking control of the process. Learn about what's going on around you, educate yourself, and access the resources at CBC that are just waiting to help you, and all the college reps as well. All right, so let's hear from the college reps a little bit. I'm going to first go to Hunter Oaks, then Isabel, and then Mark, and they're going to explain a little bit about what they do as college reps. So Isabel, take it away. Isabel from Mizzou.
I'm Hunter from Mizzou.
Oh my gosh.
Totally
Thank you,
fine.
Hunter.
My name is Hunter. I'm your admissions rep for Mizzou for St. Louis area schools. My role is just to connect with students and meet them where they are as a St. Louis student. So my favorite part of this job is just hearing from students from all different walks of life. And I'm always happy to answer a phone call or email wherever you are in that admissions process to get you to where you want to be.
Thank you, Hunter. Now we'll go to Isabel. Isabel from
hello.
WashU, take it away.
Hi, so my job is pretty similar to Hunter's. I'm the admissions rep that covers CBC, and so what that means is that every fall I do a visit. So I already visited this fall, but I'll be back, as well as doing events like this. And then if you're a student who's interested in WashU, you're always welcome to ask me questions. If you ever email like the general WashU email, it's pretty likely it'll come to me. I'm just kind of there to be like the point person on WashU's side if you're a student who's interested in applying.
Thanks so much, Isabel. And now Mark Nothum from St. Louis University.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Nothum. I am one of the assistant directors of admission at SLU. I've been here at SLU for almost 9 years, so I've been around for quite a bit. And I work mostly with a lot of the private schools in the St. Louis area, as well as in Arkansas and some areas across Missouri. Kind of like what Hunter and Isabel said, we always try to be like a one-stop shop for you as your admission counselor. Just here to help you out this whole process from application. At SLU, I'll also be working with you when it comes to like financial aid and basically kind of those final steps over the summer till you move in here next fall, the fall of after you graduate. So we're here to help you out for that whole process.
Thanks so much, Mark. And so as you'll see on the timeline and as you'll hear tonight, one of the best ways you can kind of start this whole thing as juniors right now, and this is something that our students have already been doing in many cases with us in advisories and maybe on their own. Right now I'm accessing a software that all of our students have access to called Naviance Student, okay? Every student has access to it. They all know how to get on. If you guys have any trouble getting on Naviance, just let your counselor know and we'll get you on right away. So what I'm going to do is pull up a student here. It's actually me pretending to be a student. And I'll show you some fun ways to maybe get started on the research program. Okay, so this is what Naviance look like when students sign in. There's all kinds of wonderful ways to do research in Naviance. There's a self-discovery area where you can take a career-related assessment. There's personality tests that can relate your personality to different career areas. You can just straight up do career research. You can get on there and type in accounting and, you know, go read about what an accountant does. You could learn all kinds of government stats about degrees required for different careers and how much money you can make depending on what state you're in and all stuff like that. Right now, though, we're going to click on colleges to show you the SuperMatch college search. And this is something that we do in advisories with our juniors a little bit later in the year. But this is something you can start doing now. This is actually kind of fun if you let it be. There are 2,828 four-year schools, according to my most recent search, four-year schools in the United States, okay? And so most, if not all of them, are in this SuperMatch college search. But the way to sift down the 2828 into a more manageable list is to work with any of these parameters. I imagine it's a little bit tough to read on your screen, but these are the search parameters here. You can put in information about location, academics, admission, student life, diversity, institution characteristics. So let's just look at a couple of these real quick and I'll show you the functionality. If we click on location, we can say, I want to go to school in the central, otherwise known as the Midwest, or let's see, Midwest or the Mid-Atlantic states. And just by clicking on a few of those things right away, if we then click behind, we can see colleges populating our list. These are all schools that are in one of those regions that I clicked on. You can go to, there's other ways to limit location that you'll see, but you can go to academics and you can say, I'm interested in earning a bachelor's degree. And you can search majors here, like, well, since I said accounting, let's just choose that since it's right there. Accounting and finance. Okay, and then if I click behind again, we see a list of schools that are in the Midwest that offer accounting finance degrees. Okay, and you can go and have a lot of fun. You can put in, I want there to be a swimming team, and I want there to be more than 20,000 students. Okay, when you see schools coming up on your list here, so let's just click on one, Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. When you click on a school in Naviance, you can read about it, learn about it, different facts, look into majors, look into student life, admissions, who gets in, all that sort of thing. Then anytime you see a school in Naviance and you say to yourself, and this is a great thing for juniors to be doing, you say to yourself, okay, I might want to apply to that school. I don't know yet, but it's a school that I'm interested in. You can click the heart symbol. If you were a real student, I'm impersonating one, but that would turn red, I believe. And it would then be on your colleges I'm thinking about list, which is right here for this student. Okay, the student doesn't have any there because they're not real. But if you were to click on the heart symbol, it would appear there for you. Okay, that's a very fun and good way to start doing the research. But the other ways are, so using Naviance. Let's see, let me get me back on here. All right, so using Naviance is a great way, guys, and that's something that you can come up to our offices. We can do SuperMatch College search together and be able to talk about it. Whenever you do a search, or however you start doing your research, and there's other ways to do it, of course, there's many out there, you can start building that colleges I'm thinking about list in Naviance, then make an appointment with your counselor and come up and we can talk about it. You can have 2 schools on there and your counselor can help you expand it to 5 or 6 schools, okay? So have some fun with the searching and come and see us to discuss it, okay? You can also use all kinds of other websites, College Confidential, College Navigator. Of course, going to colleges' websites is a great way to do research. YouTube has videos of all kinds. So for YouTube, for example, you can go to YouTube and search Mizzou in there. Of course, that'll pull up 45,000 different things. But you can look for admissions videos and information that are kind of slick school-produced things. You can also find a typical day in the life of an accounting and business student at Mizzou. I'm sure there's a video like that on there. So use your resources. If you get stuck, come and see us. One more thing on Naviance. So it is one of the most widely used softwares at CBC. And juniors, if you haven't been using it, if you're not able to get on there, let's change that up really soon, okay? This year, total. So this is total visits for our current seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen into Naviance. They have logged into Naviance 5,575 times. So it is very widely used software that we're happy to work with you all on, okay? All right, let's talk visits a little bit because it's another very important part of research. And so what I'll do in this case is I'll go to Mark, then Isabel, then Hunter, and we will learn about, if you become a little bit interested in SLU or you just want to check it out, how you can arrange a visit to St. Louis University. And there you go, Mark.
Sure. So we offer daily visits Monday through Friday, and it's a simple online registration on the website, slu.edu/visit, and I'll take you to our visit page on the website where you can schedule a standard daily visit, which is going to be a admission presentation and then a campus tour. However, if you're taking the time to come to campus and you want to do more, we have other additional opportunities potentially as well. On most Mondays and Fridays, we do offer special program visits to where if you're interested in one of our several kind of highly sought after programs, things like our flight science program, our professional pilots program, our pre-health programs, our programs related to like physical therapy, nursing, we offer special visits on Fridays and some Mondays where you're able to get not only that admission presentation and tour, but also a special presentation from those departments as well. And we also, on that visit page on our website, you'll see that we also have several events, usually in the fall and then in the spring, more so for those admitted seniors, but we still have some things for those non-admitted seniors as well. Those admission events that we have one coming up this Saturday called Health Career Visits Day. That'll be held on our medical campus, which is going to be in the School of Medicine for a presentation, and then like a facility kind of checking out the different facilities that we have for the School of Nursing, the Boise College of Health Sciences. And anyone can sign up for that and kind of get a preview of those programs and those visits. And so all the best ways to visit our campus is going to be starting through our website and registering online, and then even just reaching out to our office, either me directly or our visit team at their email address at visitslu@slu.edu to help kind of personalize that visit more to what you would be looking for that visit.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Isabel, how about WashU?
So my answer is going to be super similar to Mark's. We do Monday through Friday visits. You can sign up for them online. I'm just trying to think about anything that's like a different answer. We also do some like special visit events that if you go to our calendar and you click around, you can see when those are offered. It's not like on a study of a schedule as SLU has, but we do have like some things like focused on pre-med or business or different interests. But yeah, I would just Google Visit WashU. You can go to our visit calendar. Yeah, pretty much the same answer as Mark.
Yeah, well, since it was pretty much the same answer, I'll interject a question. What about, Isabel, let's stay with you. What about, what are some, when you're interacting with students, what are some good questions that they ask when they're visiting? What are some ways that they can kind of put their best foot forward to learn something about WashU? How do they show up the best on a tour and interaction with you? What kind of questions do they ask?
Yeah, so students definitely don't need to worry about showing up for me in any kind of way because WashU does not consider demonstrated interest. So that's this thing that some colleges do where if you visit, that gives you extra points in the admissions process. Like, we don't do that. So, we really want you to come visit. Like, I'm always happy to talk to students, but you don't need to worry about like coming across any certain way because that's just not a part of our admissions process. I would say that, good questions to ask. I think a visit is a really good opportunity to like ask questions of the tour guides. Because they're current students who know a lot about the school and a lot about their own experiences. And I think they're a really good resource. I'm trying to, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that like would be good to ask me, but I'm always happy to answer questions as they come up.
Yeah. Thanks, Isabel. All right, Hunter, how do visits work at Mizzou?
Yes, in general, very similar to the previous two answers, except we are 2 hours away. So 2 hours down the road, quick and easy day trip if you want to visit Mizzou Monday through Friday. But we host same structure of visits. You'll get your presentation, a tour, and then if there are any departments that you're interested in studying, we can get that set up too. And on your day, you'll try the dining hall, get a free t-shirt, the whole experience. The only other thing I might add is the purpose of visiting campus is just for the student to get a good idea of what life as a college student is like there. So whatever you deem important for a college campus to have, that is your opportunity to explore that, see how far away the classes are from each other and try the food, just anything that's important for your student.
Yes. All right. Thanks, Hunter. Yeah, try the food. That's a good one. And it's also a great way to just see students in action. And you can maybe be that family that sits down next to kids and tries to start talking to the college kids and see if you can learn anything interesting that way in the dining hall. Thank you, Hunter. All right. A couple other things to mention in regards to visits. We at CBC have a new kind of program this year in the counseling office. It's called College Visit Field Trips. And we've already had one already to Maryville University, right down the outer road from CBC. And then tomorrow, as a matter of fact, we have 19, I believe it's 19 or 20 students that will be visiting St. Louis University. So you could take a look for them around campus tomorrow, Mark. We'll have 19 or so CBC juniors, I think primarily, maybe a senior or 2 or 3 in there, coming over to check out St. Louis University. So I hope you all heard that the colleges are eager to have you come and visit. There's all kinds of ways to visit a school. Don't forget virtual visits either. By the way, on the college visit field trips that we're doing this year, we have had Maryville, SLU tomorrow, and then in the spring we're going to be visiting Wash U. And that's still in the works. And in case Isabel's thinking, I haven't heard about that yet. That's in the planning stages, but we hope to get over to Wash U in the spring and then to a community college, one of the St. Louis Community College campuses, a little bit later in the spring. All right, so next up is, working our way down the agenda there, is the Common Application. So for all the parents that are watching tonight, maybe if you did go to college back in the day, you probably did not use the Common Application to apply to college. But the Common Application is very widely used now. I believe it's something like 80% of our applications from CBC going out to colleges, 80% of those applications are on the Common Application. So in case you're not aware of what it is, the Common Application is it's sort of what it sounds like. It's one big application that you can then use to apply to any of about 1,000. I think there's over 1,000 schools that accept the Common App, including all 3 schools that have joined us tonight. And so colleges don't have a preference if they have a direct application, like St. Louis University has the Billiken application, and they also take the Common Application. All the colleges tell us they don't have a preference whether you use their direct app or the Common Application, okay? The Common Application is appropriate to use when you're going to be applying to, at least 3 or 4 schools that accept the Common App. It is sort of a lot of work to do the Common App, but once you're done with the Common App, then it's sort of easy to apply to a larger number of schools instead of having to go to, if you're a student who applies to 12 or 13 or 14 colleges, it's much easier to use the Common App than to go and start the process over and over and over again at all those schools. So that's the Common Application, okay? And we're going to talk a little bit more about the Common Application in a few minutes when we're talking about some workshops that we're going to be doing at the CBC in the spring. But let's move ahead to so you go in your research and you visit the schools and you start to get a list together of schools you might be interested in applying to. And then let's just kind of fast forward a little bit to your senior year when you're actually applying to college in August, September, and October primarily, okay? So the question for now is, when you hit submit and you send your application off to the colleges, how do they evaluate you? What's important to the colleges? And instead of setting this up and then sending it to the reps, I'm going to let them start and explain this one so we don't all end up saying the same thing. But on this one, we're going to start with Isabel and then go to Hunter and then Mark. So Isabel, how does WashU evaluate students? How do you decide who gets in and who doesn't, who's admitted and who's not? I know it's a very difficult decision for admission reps everywhere.
Yeah. So I would say that the first thing that we look at is going to be a student's transcript. We're looking for students who are doing really well in the context of their high schools. So that means we're not expecting you to take classes that don't exist at CBC, but in terms of what is available at CBC, we're looking at, are you getting really good grades? Are you choosing a lot of advanced classes? That type of thing. So most of our applicants are going to have that. And then at that point, we go holistic and we kind of look at everything. So the Common App, as Tim just described, has a bunch of different sections, essays, extracurriculars, recommendations, and we kind of zoom out and really look at the bigger picture to kind of assemble, because we want to bring in a class of students that has a really diverse range of majors that they're interested in, backgrounds and hobbies and things like that. So once we verified that academically you're going to be successful at WashU, we really zoom out and look at everything.
Thank you, Isabel. Hunter, how about Mizzou?
Yes, so at Mizzou, we have published admissions criteria, which is online. So students can see where exactly we need them to be academically before they even apply. But the main thing, of course, that we look at is academics. So we specifically calculate what is called a core GPA for students. And this is how we evaluate them to make sure they're set up to be successful at our institution. And what this core GPA is it's an unweighted GPA based on your English, math, science, social studies, foreign language, and fine art classes. We just focus in on those because those are typically standardized and taught across the board from school to school. So those help us determine if your student is set up to be successful at Mizzou.
And Hunter, as you are looking at, as we're looking at the grids and trying to figure out GPA and test scores and that sort of thing on the grid, do you, when you say GPA, is that, so CBC works on a weighted 4.0 scale. And so some of our students might have a 4.2 GPA on the 4.0 scale. How is that, when you say GPA, do you mean the weighted GPA that the school states, or do you unweight it when you are calculating that or considering GPA?
Right. For admission purposes, we recalculate the GPA. So we're going to look at an unweighted core GPA for admission. However, for scholarship purposes, that is when we will take the weighted GPA from CBC into consideration. So all of those dual credit and AP classes will come back to help you out for scholarship purposes later.
Okay. Thank you, Hunter. Mark, how about SLU?
Yeah, so it'll be kind of similar to what's been said already. But at SLU, we are test optional, so you're not required to submit ACT or SAT test scores, and that's across the board, regardless of it's for admission or for scholarships. We are test optional. For the vast majority of our programs, we work with all the departments to establish minimum admission requirements, and we simply will review the application based off of those established admission requirements. The only difference is we have 4 selective programs that have some additional layers of review, and that's going to be our flight science professional pilots program, our nursing program, physical therapy, and occupational therapy. Those are our 4 selective programs, so they have limited enrollment. For those programs, we do take a much more hands-on, in-depth review of the application, where we'll look at letters of recommendation, we'll look at the math and science courses those students have taken. That department will review the applicants themselves, and they will then determine their incoming class. But for the vast majority of the programs, it will just be your high school transcript and your test scores if you submit them, and if those test scores and GPA in the classes meet the minimum requirements for the program. And except for those selective programs that have an additional layer review by those departments themselves.
Okay, thank you, Mark, very much for that. A little bit more on how colleges evaluate students for admission. The National Association of College Admissions Counseling does list factors. They do a survey every year for college admissions folks nationally, and they ask them, what are the most important factors on college admissions evaluations? What do you take into account most? And just like you heard from our reps tonight, the number one consideration that college reps report is high school grades in college prep courses, along with that total high school grades overall, so GPA, and then strength of high school curriculum. So as you juniors have been hearing since freshman year from your counselors, the most important thing you can do in school, in high school, to prepare for college is to learn to love learning, get into things, find some depth of interest in different things, and achieve the best grades you can, because the primary way that you're evaluated by colleges when you send off that application is your transcript. They look at the classes you're taking and the grades you are earning in those classes, and they go from there. followed not far behind by things like positive character attributes, your essay. You heard Isabel mention that at WashU, they don't take into account demonstrated interest. It's called demonstrated interest means, have you interacted with the school? Have you visited the school? Do you click on their emails? Have you contacted the rep? Do they know you're interested in them? Some schools factor that in, but less and less so by the year, it seems like, and WashU has explicitly said they don't count demonstrated interest. Counselor recommendation is another important consideration, teacher recommendation, and then, you know, a little bit less important factors are your activities list, and your test scores. Interesting note about test scores, it used to be, let's see, back in 2012, when college admissions officers were asked, are test scores an important consideration in admission? 56% of college admissions professionals said yes, that's a very important thing that we consider. And in 2023, that percentage dropped to 4.9. Let's round that to 5% of college admissions reps reported that test scores were a very important part of admissions. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit more about test optional policies coming up here. All right, what is next on our list here, everybody? We are up to admissions glossary. So can we take a look back at the PowerPoint that's kind of on the screen now for you all, I see. Let's go view our PowerPoint a little bit and see how we're doing here. All right, so we've worked our way through, just a little check-in here. We've been working our way down this list here. Junior and senior timeline we talked about the roles. Now's the time to research. We looked at a little bit of the SuperMatch college search. College visits we discussed a little bit. Common application. We'll get to what is CaCAW here, I think, very soon. And we just finished 7 and we are up to 8. What about letters of recommendation? So we just heard letters of recommendation mentioned as the college reps were talking about, as I was going over stats from NACAC, the National Association of College Admission Counselors. Letters of recommendation is often part of the common application process, but not all schools require letters of recommendation. In fact, of these of the schools on here, I should probably throw it around to the reps really quickly to just start with which of your schools, or how do letters of recommendation play into the process at your school? Mark, if we could start with you, do you all require letters of recommendation? And what role do they play in the admissions process? Slew.
Yeah, so for admission, we do not require a letter of recommendation to be submitted. So they're not necessary for just applying for admission. Where it really helps students out is when either, I guess mentioned already, they're applying to one of our selective programs. We don't require, but we highly recommend that they do that, because now you're not just competing with admission requirements, you're now competing against other students. And every little bit of information that we can get about you is very important to us to learn about your whole educational experience, about what's happening in your life and why are you interested in this program. That can help provide a lot of context to that. We do require letters of recommendation for some of our competitive honors and scholars programs, things like our medical scholars, our presidential scholarship. Part of that review process does require 2 letters of recommendation. The other group of students that I think can really benefit from letters of recommendation are students that do need that additional context throughout their educational experience. Maybe freshman year, you had a lot of things going on, and your grades from freshman year aren't really reflective of your status as your current status as a student. Your senior year, having someone to help provide that context can be very helpful and help in our admission offices understand your whole educational experience. So we don't require it for admission. We do for some of our competitive programs, and I do recommend it for students that it can really help provide context to their time in high school.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Mark. Hunter, what about letters of recommendation when it comes to Mizzou?
Very similar. We do not require them for admission purposes, but we do evaluate every application on a case-by-case basis. So just as Mark said, if it adds context to a student's certain situation, then it absolutely does not hurt to send it in. And it is always a good idea to be prepared to provide at least one letter of recommendation for scholarship purposes later on as well.
Thanks a lot, Hunter. Isabel, how about WashU? Do you all require letters of recommendation?
Yes, we require a counselor letter and one letter from a teacher. And I mean, the counselor letter, the counseling office is going to be very prepared to write those for every student who's applying to a school that requires counselor letters. Like that's very standard, and mostly the counseling office is giving kind of like background on the school, kind of as was referred to earlier, any like context or special circumstances or things like that. So that's something like, Tim, if you have students that are interested in WashU, I'm sure you expect and are prepared to write the counseling letter of recommendation.
Yeah.
And then we require one from a teacher. Students can submit more if they'd like. With that, I would encourage you to only submit more if they're adding like new information. So for example, if you ask your math teacher to write your teacher letter of recommendation, but you're also like a really great athlete and you want to ask your coach, like that would be kind of seeing you in a new context, adding new information. Asking a second math teacher would probably not add much. So we require two, one from the counselor, one from the teacher. You can add more if there's more information being shared.
Okay, great. And I hope that's reassuring to students and families to hear that all three colleges, you know, we have three different colleges here. We have WashU, a highly selective college. We have St. Louis University, a local Catholic university, outstanding schools all, and we have University of Missouri, you know, fantastic school. Each of them has different ways that they evaluate students a little bit and different selection criteria. But each of them said that they do get to the holistic review sort of thing. And that can be reassuring for folks to know, you know, maybe in high school, a student had a bad semester for some reason. And they had a, you know, pretty steady GPA, but then, you know, spring of sophomore year, it took a dip. Colleges want to attract you to their school, and they want to admit you. All of these nice, you can tell how nice all these reps are. They all want you to come to their school. They want to admit you to their school, and they're willing to put in the time to look to see reasons to admit you to their school. Okay, so think about that. The other thing to think about for you juniors at this time of life, given what we just talked about with letters of recommendation, is the most common letters of recommendation that accompany transcripts with your application are from junior year core subject teachers. They don't have to exclusively be from your core teachers junior year at all. But that's the most common, those are your most common teachers who write college letters of recommendation. The reason your senior year teachers don't tend to write as many is because when you're applying to college, you're new to your senior teachers for the most part. Of course, there's lots of exceptions, but those junior teachers have just finished teaching you for a whole year. And the job of a teacher letter of recommendation is to provide context to the colleges for what they see in the classroom from you that is promising for college academic performance, and also just you as a citizen of their community. Okay, the counselor letter is a little bit more holistic than that. While the teachers tend to focus on, I taught the student this and he shined in these various ways, the counselor, like a couple of the reps alluded to, gives a more holistic look at a student and what makes you tick and what makes you go and why we are confident about you being a college student at their university. All right. Speaking of admissions, and another thing, I won't talk much about it. Oh, back when I applied in college, it was like this, but I'll just do it one more time. When I applied to college, each college just had a deadline, and I had to apply before the deadline, and then I heard at some point later, whether or not I was admitted to the school or not. Maybe some of the parents can relate to that for sure. Now, there are different deadlines that can be very important to be aware of in the process and to be knowledgeable about as you go through the application process. Each school can have multiple deadlines. It's not just one deadline. So let's go around to the college reps again and just learn a little bit about early decision deadlines, early action deadlines, rolling admission deadlines, and what each of those means. So in this time, let's start with Hunter, then we'll go to Mark, and then we'll go to Isabel. So Hunter, what about deadlines at Mizzou? Oh, Hunter, are you there? There you are.
Yes.
All right.
So at Mizzou specifically, we operate on rolling admission. What this means is that we are making decisions all the time, every single day of the year. So our applications will open up on August 1st of the student's senior year. They can submit their application at any point after that. And after we receive all required materials, such as a high school transcript and an ACT score, then they should hear back from us within about 2 to 4 weeks with an admission decision. Students can apply on August 1st, or they can apply in November. We will not prioritize or give them like higher consideration regardless. It's all of our admission requirements are straightforward out there, but they can apply at whenever they please. The only other deadlines that kind of come up are with scholarships. So December 1st is a big scholarship deadline for us. So in general, we always encourage students to apply sooner rather than later if they are able to.
And Hunter, when you say December 1st for a scholarship deadline, does that mean they need to apply to the university by December 1st, or there's a separate scholarship application by December 1st?
There is a separate scholarship application that students will have access to after they are admitted. And that scholarship application is due on December 1st. So students want to get in and admitted well before that time so they can fill that out.
Yep, another reason why we encourage our students to apply in August, September, and October, get the ball rolling early so you can have these options with the schools. Okay, Mark, how about deadlines at St. Louis University?
Yeah, so we are one of the institutions that have application paths that you will select for your application. Our application will open in August of your senior year, like many other schools, and we start receiving applications all throughout the fall. Our first deadline, it will be November 1st for our Early Decision 1 students. Early decision is a binding agreement where you're saying this is my top choice, and if I'm admitted, regardless of all factors, other than just being admitted, I will then commit to the institution at that time and withdraw applications from other institutions. Those students will hear about their admission and merit scholarship decisions on December 1st. They're the first students that receive those admission decisions. The next round of students are the early action students. That's a non-binding agreement, non-binding application path for those students that has a December 1st deadline. That tends to be our largest pool of applicants, since the majority of our deadlines for high school seniors is December 1st. It keeps everything nice and tidy and on track to get everything in time by December 1st. We typically start releasing early action admission decisions in mid to late December. Again, you would get that admission decision and merit scholarship decision with that initial decision. And then we also offer regular decision. Regular decision is our kind of catch-all application path. We don't have a specific deadline for our regular decision application. We will leave it open as long as we have space available. I encourage students that to apply regular decision when maybe they want that first semester of senior year grades to really up their odds of admission or a higher merit scholarship, or maybe, you have thought all of high school that you're not going to be a local student and stay in St. Louis, and then you get to spring of your senior year and you're like, maybe I should have at least a few St. Louis options, we will still have that regular decision application available for you to complete. We do also offer early decision 2. It's a similar concept as early decision 1, but that deadline is January 16th.
Outstanding. Okay, thank you, Mark. Isabel, how about WashU?
Yeah, so I'll kind of go in the order that our deadlines are. Our earliest deadline is going to be for something called QuestBridge, which does not apply to most students, but for those for whom it might be a good fit, it can be a good option. What QuestBridge is a program for students from high-achieving, low-income backgrounds. And what kind of distinguishes QuestBridge is that students create a match list. So if you're accepted into the program, it's this whole thing that you should really talk to your counselor about if it sounds like something that might be a good fit for you. But QuestBridge essentially allows you to apply to multiple colleges early in like a ranked order, and then there's a computer algorithm and it pairs students to colleges. Definitely talk to your counselor more about this if you're a high achieving student from a low income background. A small amount of our applicants do that. And then we have early decision. So much like SLU, we have 2 early decision rounds, ED1 and ED2. Early decision 1 is going to be beginning of November, and early decision 2 is going to be beginning of January. We do not have a rolling option, and we don't have an early action option. So if you are applying early, that's going to be a binding commitment that you're making. And it doesn't matter like how close to the deadline you submit, as long as you get it in by that deadline, since we're not a school that does rolling. And then we also have regular decision, which is due early January, and that's kind of our most standard pathway that most of our applicants go with.
Okay, thank you, Isabel. It's very, very helpful. And just to put an umbrella over all of that, at the risk of saying it too many times, we want you juniors to be thinking, now's the time to visit, now's the time to research, now's the time to learn and meet with my counselor. We're going to talk ACT in a few minutes. But then when you get to the fall, you can be really ready to apply nice and early. And there's all kinds of benefits to that. You have access to all these special deadlines. You heard at St. Louis University, there's some specific programs that have their own ways that students are considered, and also might even have their own deadlines. So it's important to be ready to go in the fall of your senior year. Okay. Let's talk additional supports that we offer here at CBC. One of which is called CaCAW, Cadet College Application Workshops. Okay. Otherwise known as CaCAW. So CaCAW is basically, we do these workshops in the fall for seniors, and we do them in the spring for our juniors. Let me see if I can get it up on my screen here. Here we go. Okay, so in the spring, it's well before any of the deadlines we just talked about, well before any of that. It's well before you're going to be submitting your applications. It's well before your chaotic fall has begun of your senior year, okay, especially athletes. There's just a lot going on in the fall, and well before that, in the springtime, we offer both before school and during activity period. You would choose either one. These start up on March 3rd. This whole schedule is on your Blackbaud resources page. Families can access that anytime, and you'll find this on there along with the timelines as well. But the first CaCAW will be Monday, March 3rd of 25. And at that one, as you can see, we'll talk about direct applications and what is the CommonApp, and we'll just kind of do an overview of college apps and timelines and the benefits of using different apps. And the whole thing is laid out here. Friday the 7th, we'll actually start opening accounts, and we'll start the process and do some of the busy work of applying to college. We'll talk about writing essays, and we'll work our way. Really, if you stick with us, if you show up for a number of these workshops, we're really going to help you get a lot of your application squared away that you can then continue to work on throughout the summer and be ready to submit in the fall. So those are called Cadet College Application Workshops, and they have that nice acronym to help you remember. Okay, those start March 3rd. Another thing that you, in your role as an active student, driving your own ship, come and see us at CaCAW. We really want to help you in that way. All right, back to my screen here, and let's see what's next. Okay, you guys, I think we're doing pretty well on time here. It's 7:26, and we are, just a reminder, we're recording this whole event, and we're going to be able to post it, send it to families. If any of you joined us late, don't worry. We're going to send you a link so you can see everything we talked about tonight. And let's see, we have just a few things to go before we get to a Q&A time. We'll use all of the remaining time once we finish up the next few items. We're going to then open it up for Q&A, and I can kind of see the questions and answers here. You're welcome to ask questions of any of our college reps or of me representing the team here. And so we should have 15 good minutes to do that. Let's see how it goes. So we're up to number 10 on our agenda, which is ACT and test optional schools. So let me get myself back on the screen here for a minute. All right, so ACT test optional. So in the day, you used to have to submit your transcript and usually your ACT or SAT scores, okay? And schools would take those into consideration. Well, in recent years, there's certainly been a major trend, kind of started before COVID, but it was exacerbated by COVID, and it kind of took off and maybe even went like that as a result of COVID. But it has stayed pretty much that many schools in the country describe their admission policies as test optional policies. And what that means is they want to see your transcript. There's very few, if any, I guess there's none. Are there any transcript optional schools out there? I don't think so. I think everybody wants your transcript, but they don't necessarily require that you are going to submit your test scores. And all three schools that have joined us tonight represent a large community of colleges that do not require test scores, okay? And the reason, there's many different reasons for that, but we still generally recommend, unless there's really a compelling reason why you wouldn't, and again, like everything else we're talking about, come and discuss it with your counselor. But we do recommend that our students go ahead and try the ACT and or the SAT 2 or 3 times by the time their senior year starts. We still believe that to be a good general recommendation for you. It can be a kind of a nuanced decision whether or not you disclose your ACT score to the colleges you're applying to. And those are really, because they're so individualized and case by case, those are great conversations to have with us. Whether or not you disclose your ACT score is your decision, you and your family's decision. CBC never discloses ACT scores to colleges unless we're specifically asked to by the family, or we have the student and the family's permission to share it. You know, I guess we could, and we do sometimes, but generally speaking, we don't even have access to your ACT scores and SAT scores. So we don't send them. That's your decision, and it's an inexact science. Come see us about that. College reps, would any of you like to add any context to test optional policies, or do you have anything to add about test optional policies that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, so WashU is test optional for this year for seniors, and we have not decided for future years. So for juniors and younger, like if you're interested in WashU, I would recommend taking the ACT just so that you have it available if we go back to requiring it. I don't think we will, but that's just my personal opinion. I don't really know what our office is going to do in the future. And as long as we remain test optional, we're like truly test optional. There's no disadvantage to not submitting test scores. So I would say for WashU, if we're still test optional next year, I would really only submit my test score if it was something I was like excited about and wanted to share. Otherwise, not a big deal.
Okay. All right.
And I can just quickly add,
Yeah.
we don't want you to play the game of should I submit my score or should I not submit my score. So if you have like a borderline like ACT score that you think you might think is good or okay, but you're not sure if you should submit that to the school, that's when you just ask us and just say, hey, I have this score. Do you think it should be test optional or should I include that test score? We're happy to tell you whether or not that would help you or you should just apply test optional. So we don't feel like you have to be stressed about trying to figure out if you should or shouldn't. You can always just reach out to the admission counselor to find out more clarity about that.
That's good to hear, Mark. Okay, Isabel, do you have something to add there?
WashU is unfortunately not like that. We're not able to give advice on should you or should you not submit your score. There's a lot of context that goes into it. We are unfortunately not able to provide that in the way that SLU can. Sorry.
No problem, Isabel, no problem. Your CBC counselor does kind of offer that service. And I hear what you're saying, Mark, absolutely. Like you don't want students to have to play a game about whether or not they do. You know, sometimes it does, you know, some things in the admissions process, whether we like it or not, it sometimes feels like a little bit of a game and some strategies involved. And a lot of these things don't have right or wrong answers either. You'll never know about, you know, this specifics about the decision about whether you're admitted to some schools or not. Yeah, on those things, or when it's feeling a little bit like, what should my strategy be here? Come and talk to us, or apparently talk to Mark at SLU. If you're applying to SLU, that's great. Thanks, Mark. And thanks, Isabel and Hunter. All right, so let's see. So after all that, we want you to hear, we do recommend you taking the ACT a couple times before your senior year, maybe 3 times. As many of you know, and it's in so every Wednesday we send out the Wednesday weekly mail from the CBC Counseling Office. And in our weekly email, every week, it's one of the enduring parts of the weekly mail, is a link to register for the ACT or the SAT. And you can see the dates on there. So ACT, let's see, it's November 13th. There will be one in December, and then one in February, and then April, and then June and July. And then we're into the fall where there's a September and an October. Okay. Most of those administrations are offered at CBC, by the way. Also, it's just kind of brand new news that I just learned yesterday. We will be hosting an ACT here at CBC for our students only during the week. It's on April 8th. I don't know what day of the week that is, but it'll be April 8th. So a nice time of year to take the ACT, if you ask me. You know, the weather's changing. It's getting a little bit nicer. You're a little bit before exams are really kicking in, and you can really spend some time focusing on preparing to do your best on the ACT and take it then. So from this point on, December, I don't know if we're past the registration deadline on that one, but plan on taking maybe 2 or 3 of February, April, June, July, and the extra April one at CBC. All right. Covered that. Okay. We are up to, you know, I'm sure some of the parents watching this, especially if this junior or sophomore, freshman is your oldest, you have ringing through your head, how am I going to pay for all of this? You know, once my students, so I know how to research, I know how to build a college list a little bit, I know who to talk to, I know about some of the resources at CBC. And then, yeah, at some point, if you're lucky enough to be a student who goes to college, somebody's got to pay for it at some point. So, and there's lots of help and resources out there as well. If I could ask Mark maybe to talk a little bit about the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid that we recommend really almost all of our families complete. And Mark, maybe you can mention when it opens this year and maybe when it might open next year, if you want to take a guess on that. And then And then I'll ask Isabel to chime in about the CSS profile, which is another version of a financial document that WashU, I believe, requires. So Mark, FAFSA.
Absolutely. So as Mr. Gillard mentioned, that the FAFSA is an acronym for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Basically what this form is, it's a form to kind of evaluate the student's household for income and assets and things like that to determine what is known as the SAI, the Student Aid Index. This is an index score that the government uses to create what they identify as a reasonable amount based on the household income and assets about a contribution to college. Now, it is not what the government is saying that you should be able to pay, like you are paid for college. It's just giving colleges like SLU and WashU and Mizzou an idea of a somewhat standardized way to understand the family's need. And the lower that SAI is, it's showing more need. And so the colleges might need to provide more additional aid to make that college, or in my case, SLU, a more affordable option. So the SAI, let's say that you have an SAI of 1,000. That means the government has established that that is kind of the number that they will provide to us colleges, and we can then use that to have a better idea of your family's need. That 1,000 probably means you do have a lot of financial need in order to make college an affordable option for you. Whenever you apply for the FAFSA, no matter what your need is, the student will qualify for $5,500 in what's called federal direct loans. These are loans directly offered to students. It won't be in the parent's name, it will just be in the student's name. Initially, it's capped at $5,500. The student will be offered for their freshman year of college. Sophomore year, that bumps up a little bit to $6,500, and then junior and senior year, that bumps up to $7,500. The FAFSA is a form that you will need to complete yearly while you're in college. So it's not just a snapshot of just as an incoming student, you will need to complete that yearly. There's a lot of different factors that go into FAFSA, whether the student is filing as a dependent student or an independent student. The vast majority will be dependent students, and your high school counselors are great resources for you to assist in answering those questions and helping you complete that form. But if you are considering needing any sort of additional aid outside of what you would expect just from a merit scholarship, then you should highly consider or really recommend completing the FAFSA, especially if you do plan on taking out any loans to help cover the cost of college, since those federal direct loans typically have lower than market rate interest rates. So although it's in the student's name, they typically are better interest rates than you're able to get on an open market. So it's the way the government allows colleges to understand a family's financial need and their ability to pay for college, and gives us kind of an educated idea on how much aid we might need to provide in order to make our college an affordable option for you.
Thanks a lot, Mark. And then what about the CSS profile, Isabel?
Yeah, so the CSS profile is a form that is required by, I believe, about 4% of colleges in the United States. WashU is the only school in Missouri that requires this, and it's typically going to be required by schools that focus very, very heavily on need-based aid. So unlike SLU and Mizzou, WashU gives out very, very few merit scholarships, and most of the aid that we give, instead of being based on grades or test scores or things like that, is based solely on the family's financial need. So that's where the CSS profile comes in. It's similar to the FAFSA in terms of what it asks for, but it goes in more depth. And it's longer to fill out just because it asks more. And so by getting that more detailed kind of financial picture from the CSS profile, that estimate, the kind of equivalent to the SAI and CSS profile land, is called the EFC. The schools like WashU are going to mostly use the CSS profile in terms of aid estimates. So a lot of schools that require the CSS profile, WashU included, are able to meet full demonstrated need. And so what that means is demonstrated need means this estimate that we get from the CSS profile, this EFC. Us and a lot of schools that require the CSS profile are able to match that. We still require the FAFSA if you are a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, because that allows you to qualify for a ton of things that Mark mostly talked about. So we still require the FAFSA so that you're eligible for different government grants and programs and things like that. But in terms of getting our need estimate, we mostly use the CSS profile, and I think that's pretty common for schools that require it.
Okay, great, Isabel. Thank you very much. Okay, wow, that was great. That was a lot of information in an hour and 10 minutes or so. We appreciate everyone hanging with us, and we sure appreciate the reps and all this great information we're getting from you all. A couple things before we open up the Q&A. And by the way, the question and answer should be accessible for any junior or family or parent that's out there. Feel free to hop onto the Q&A and ask a question, and we should be able to take a look at that and get you an answer tonight. A couple things just on the more wrap-up side of things. On Friday, your counselor, your CBC counselor, will be emailing you a link to this video and also kind of a survey for you to take to let us know what you thought about the presentation tonight, and information about how to set up a meeting with them. Okay, so that'll be coming by the end of the week. It might be tomorrow, but I think it'll be Friday. So please keep an eye out for that from your CBC counselor. And just to remind a little bit, now is the time, based on what you've heard tonight, that it's time to come up and meet with us. Anytime between now, we meet with juniors anytime from around now to through the spring, okay? And we have pre-registration coming in January and February. So students, give thought to what you heard tonight. What classes are you going to take next year as a senior? We didn't mention that, but it's a good thing to mention. When your transcript is sent off to colleges in the fall of your senior year, it does not have any grades from senior year on it, because you don't have grades until January, and you're usually applying in the fall. But it does have your senior coursework on there. So make sure you're working toward your best learning and your highest achievement you can when you're choosing your classes for senior year. And make sure you do your best this year and show up as best you can on your transcript as we head toward these application months. It's also the time to research, as we talked about. Maybe hop on to Naviance, do a SuperMatch college search this weekend. Just get going, have some fun with it. Click on in Naviance, when you find any college, you can click on their website and go learn about them right from the college website. Start building that colleges I'm thinking about list in Naviance. Come up and talk about it with your counselor. Review the timeline. That's the other thing that I wanted to remember to say we're going to send to you. We're going to send you a link to this video, and then we're going to also include the junior and senior timelines for you on that as well. And we really want you to know we're here to support you every single step of the way. So here we are at the last 15 minutes that we're going to open up for questions. I got a couple via text here that we'll see. So first question was, do colleges have a preference between SAT and ACT or in general? And it looks like one of our counselors did answer that. And I'm sure if I could have all the reps on the screen, they would all nod that no, colleges don't have a preference. If you do send a test score, they'll just as happily take an ACT as an SAT. In case you're not aware, ACT is a little bit more of a Midwestern-based test. It's based in Des Moines, Iowa, while College Board is based in Princeton, New Jersey, and has a little bit more adherence on the coast. A little bit. I'm very much generalizing there. But you might be a student who, even though you're here in the Midwest, you might do better on the SAT than the ACT. It's not a bad idea to take one of each if you're up for it, and then see how your percentages are, see how you compare on each one. You might do better on one than the other, and then you can focus on that one. Another question came in, it's from Mizzou. So I'm going to pull Hunter up here as I read the question. So Hunter, at Mizzou, there is a grid for ACT score crossed with GPA. For a $1,000, $3,500 and more. So the scholarships grid. Is that scholarship for 4 years?
Yes, it is a 4-year scholarship. As long as the student maintains a 2.75 college GPA, they get to keep that scholarship.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure the news anyone would want to hear when they're asking that question. And those are those excellence awards and the curators award and those that you can find on Mizzou's website, right on the grid on there. All right, so let's see if we have any other questions coming into the Q&A here. I'm gonna see Katie replied to that one. So anybody's welcome to send questions in. At the moment, I don't see any other than those two I mentioned.
Tim, I don't know if you can hear me, but I do have, there's a question here.
Yeah, would you like me to send you live here, Katie?
Sure.
Putting you on the spot here.
That's all right.
Here is Katie Corbin, one of our awesome counseling team here. Katie, take it away.
Hello, thank you reps for being here and parents and students. So there is a question and it's asking if you do disclose your scores, excuse me, how do they factor those into everything? So I guess that would be a question for the reps. Okay,
let's start with Isabel at WashU on that one.
All right. I mean, it's so complicated. It depends on the student. Like if you submit a score and it's very, very far below our like middle 50% range, I guess we might look at that and like that would be paired with kind of the transcript, and we would look at both of those things to see like, is the student prepared to do the work at WashU? If a student like scores really high, that's it's really like kind of paired with the transcript, and so it depends so much on like what the score is and what kind of grades we're seeing on the transcript. It's very hard to give like a blanket answer because we're so holistic and we look at everything. But I would say overall it's like a pretty small piece of our process, and that the transcript is a lot more important. And if we have submitted test scores, we would be looking at them to kind of make sure that they're confirming what's in the transcript, or if they are telling different stories, that kind of thing. But assuming that the transcript and the test score are sharing similar information, then I would say it's a really small part of our process. So I'm sorry that wasn't like a good answer. It just really, really depends on the student.
Yeah, I think that can be, you know, I think it's an honest answer. You know, it depends on the situation with the student. And I think I'm sure SLU and Mizzou, Hunter and Mark would agree with that. Yeah, it's one factor, and sometimes it's more important than other times. Depends on the context.
Yeah, it's never going to be the single make or break factor. We're always comparing it with other data points that we have.
Awesome. Okay. Another great question came in here from someone. It says, what's the difference between early action and early decision? And does applying for those rather than regular decision help out in any way? I'll just get started on this one, and then maybe I guess Isabel, as the heaviest early decision school here, maybe I'll ask you to kind of take it from what I leave off. But so there's early action and early decision. Early decision is the one that's different from all the rest, really. Early decision is a binding agreement. You're saying to the college, you are my first choice school. If you admit me, it's a binding decision. If you admit me, I'm coming to your school. Okay. I'll let Isabel address some more of the differences, but early action is not early decision. There's early decision. ED is the one that's different from the rest, ED. Then early action is just usually colleges might say, if you apply by this date, we will give you an admissions decision by this date. And then if you apply later than the early action deadline, the regular admission deadline might be a month or 2 or 3 later. If you apply by that date, then you're hearing, weeks beyond that. So it's kind of like if you apply early, we let you know a little bit earlier. Isabel, can you talk to us a little bit about early decision versus early action?
Yeah, so WashU does not have early action. We just have early decision. And the difference between those two is going to be, as people have said earlier, that early decision is a binding commitment. So if you decide to apply early decision to a school, that means you, your parents, your counselor, all sign a form saying, if I am admitted to this school, I will attend this school. So you're making a binding commitment, which means that it needs to be your number one choice. You need to feel like if I got into every college that exists, I would go to this college. And part of that is finances. So if you're interested in early decision at WashU, and I would assume at SLU as well, or really any school that offers early decision, we can provide good estimates for what it would cost if you were admitted. So we have something called a net price calculator available. This gives a really good initial estimate of what WashU would likely cost. And if you have questions, you can go directly to our financial aid office from there. The difference between the two is that early decision is very much binding, but we do really want to emphasize that if early decision is something you're thinking about, we at WashU feel like we're in a situation to where anyone who's considering that option can get an estimate from us and can know what WashU would cost before they make that commitment. So that's kind of what those things are. And then on the admission side, the way I kind of explain it is that we have the same standards across all of our rounds. We're looking for the same things. We evaluate applications the same way, but fewer people choose the early decision option and we have more spots available. Like we're reading our early decision applications right now and we haven't filled any of the class yet. So that just means that if you're somebody who's a really strong candidate for WashU, that it can be easier to stand out in a smaller pool. So same standards, you need the same things. If you're a strong candidate, you might be able to stand out a little easier in early decision.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Isabel. And, really all the schools, there can be benefits to applying early, whether or not you're applying early decision or even early action. Earlier is better, generally speaking. And also, it's an important thing to know that when schools offer you an offer of admission, they basically have to keep that offer open to you until May 1st of your senior year. Okay, May 1st is called National Decision Day. And that means that you basically have through April to put your deposit down at a school and say you're coming to that school. The exception to that is early decision, as we've just reviewed. But just know that when schools admit you, you have time to wait to see what the financial aid offers. Those tend to come in the spring. See what the offers are. See how the schools stack up against each other in terms of what they offer and what they'll, your best determination of what they'll cost, and then make a decision. And that decision is usually made in the spring. Now at Mizzou, since we get, Mizzou is the #1 application school for our students, for sure. Year in, year out, we send more students to Mizzou than any other school. And so, Hunter, in terms of deadlines at Mizzou, I know you've already mentioned a few of them. You don't have to go through all the deadlines again. But what are some of the benefits of applying early, having a decision early, and then if Mizzou is your school, once you make that decision, what are some of the benefits of being early in the process?
Yes, so as I said before, we are rolling admission, so students really can apply at any point in time. The main benefit of applying early would be that scholarship deadline. After a student is admitted, they have access to our internal scholarship portal, which gives you a big advantage because you're able to apply for all of the scholarships that apply to you specifically at Mizzou based on what you want to major in. If you're a legacy student, you might find scholarships that are applicable to you through that internal portal. And you're going to have the most priority in applying for those by December 1st, of course. Aside from that, our housing process is a year-long extended process. And the way it's set up right now is that students who are admitted in the fall, they're able to start lining up to then select housing later on. So a student can sign their housing contract right now in the fall semester, and then that timestamps them and will allow them to select housing sooner than their peers who maybe sign the housing contract later. So there are benefits, and overall, I think it just takes a lot of pressure off because you're able to move through those steps as they become available rather than waiting until the very last minute to go through all of those.
Okay, thanks a lot, Hunter. We have a question. By the way, it's 7:55. We're going to end on time tonight, so we're 5 minutes, but we can squeeze in a couple more questions, I think. One question comes in: what if your son has an interest in a sport at Wash U? During the visit, how can they learn more about it? And so one thing I'll just throw out there about sports and recruiting, that is a little bit outside of the CBC Counselor realm, generally speaking. Now, we work with, obviously, we're at CBC, we work with student athletes every single day here that are hoping to play sports in college. And so we can be very helpful with that. But a lot of times on the recruiting side, we aren't necessarily aware what's going on without the student or family cluing us in and seeing how we can support. Wash U is a Division III athletics program, which kind of means, as far as I know, and Isabel can of course correct me if I'm wrong, but Division III sports is kind of like you have to be just straight up admissible to the school, and then you can play a sport at that school if you're admissible at the school. It's a little bit different from Division I sports, where there's a whole many hundreds of page handbook on how to qualify for Division I sports. Division III keeps it relatively simpler. If you get into our school and you can play a sport here, then you can play a sport. Isabel, do you have anything to add to that with this parent wondering how can a student learn more about playing a sport at Wash U if they're visiting?
Go to the coach. The coaches do it all. You should email the coach for the sport you would like to play. We keep pretty separate, so I really don't know what happens over in the athletic recruiting world. And I think in any like D1 school, it would be even more separate because of like legal reasons. But for Wash U, if you are interested in playing a sport at Wash U, you should email the coach that coaches the sport you're interested in, and they will take it from there. That is not my realm.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. Let's squeeze in one or two more. How do test optional schools weigh in on scholarships regarding ACT, SAT scores? Or do the test scores weigh in at all for these schools? So let's go to Hunter on that one. I think people might be looking at the grid on Mizzou's website and then think, well, what if we don't disclose an ACT score? How do we find our spot on the grid? How much scholarship dollars are we going to get? What do you have to say about that, Hunter?
For students who apply test optionally to Mizzou, you're awarded holistically for your scholarship. So that award is evaluated behind the scenes, and it's going to be heavily weighted on the student's core GPA. So focusing on those 17 core classes, the English, Math, Science, Social Studies that I was mentioning earlier, but we're going to look at that, and then also the student's essay. So there's a range. Right now, it's up to $5,500 per academic year for students who apply test optionally. They're evaluated for those. However, a student can always submit their ACT or SAT score later on if that would bump them up to a higher level scholarship on that grid. So they can always submit additional information later.
Okay, thanks a lot, Hunter. Mark, did we, a minute ago, I think it looked like you wanted to say something. Did I miss anything from you, or do you have anything to add to any of that? Or should I try to hit one more question?
Well, I think pretty much covered. It was more about test optional
Okay.
stuff, but we're good.
Okay. Okay, great. What goes into a competitive scholarship decision? For example, Maryville has a competitive competition day for anyone applying to competitive scholarship. What goes into this competition? So I guess none of you works at Maryville, but you all have competitive scholarships at your campus. So Mark, maybe you could try to answer that one for this parent.
Yeah, so to help kind of clarify the terms, when I say merit scholarship, what we're talking about is going to be just based on your application for admission. So that merit scholarship is just based on your transcript. If you submit those test scores, that is what that's entirely based on. Competitive scholarships usually involve extra layers. So for example, SLU's big competitive scholarship is our presidential scholarship. It is a full tuition scholarship. We only offer about 20 each year. that goes through a separate application and interview process. So in order to be considered for the scholarship, you need to meet the minimum requirements and then also submit the separate application for that scholarship. We'll then review all of the applicants, narrow it down to a group of students that we will want to interview for the scholarship, and then the students are rewarded those scholarships based off those interviews. Typically, over the past couple of years, our applications total a little more than 1,300 applications for that scholarship, that we narrow it down between around 450 students that we want to interview, roughly. And then again, based off those student interviews, we award around 20 of those scholarships. So that's kind of the big difference between like a competitive scholarship is you're competing against other students probably for a select number of those scholarships, whereas a merit scholarship is just something that you receive for applying or applying and submitting a scholarship application for that.
Okay, thanks so much, Mark. Thank you to all of our reps. Thanks to all of the families for joining us tonight and for watching the recording. We really appreciate it so much. It's a team effort to have our students feel prepared for college admissions. Last question, out of curiosity, does WashU even offer athletic scholarships? Let's get one more in. I can handle that one. No, Division III sports are not scholarship sports. You could, like any student attending WashU or any other Division III school, you can qualify for other scholarships, but athletic scholarships don't happen at Division III schools. I want to wrap up by saying thank you to everyone and really reminding you, juniors especially, and your families, now's the time to start scheduling meetings with your counselor. Come in, let's talk about all this while it's nice and early in the process and get the ball rolling. We will be meeting with families either this semester or next semester. So, and it kind of depends on each counselor's schedule, of course, but you can reach out to your counselor, see a time that works for your counselor. And throughout the spring is perfectly fine for those meetings as well. And they're not necessarily one and done. We're here for you. We're all full-time waiting to help you guys with everything. And as you have learned tonight, you have a college reps that are eager to help you through the process as well. So I really want to thank Isabel and Mark and Hunter so much for joining us tonight, and for all the families and the CBC counseling team as well. Really appreciate that. If we didn't get to any questions that are popping up in the Q&A, I will try to copy them and maybe address them in the weekly mail. A lot of them are coming through anonymous, so I don't know whom to reply to on that front. But thank you all so much for joining, and I hope everybody has a great night. Bye-bye.